have been incredibly expensive to crew and operate just as a radio ship, but the suggestion was to have it stationed in the Mozambique Channel near the port of Beira, with coverage for the BBC into both Rhodesia and South Africa. Can you imagine the antenna field that would be available on that? Now, the Rhodesian capital of Salisbury, present-day Harare, is 284 miles from Beira on the nearest part of the Mozambique Channel, so transmissions would probably have been on tropical band shortwave during the daytime and high-power medium wave at night. However, this radio project never got beyond the planning stages, and instead was replaced by plans for a land-based relay station in Bechuanaland. 2 years later, the empty and uncompleted aircraft carrier Leviathan itself was sold and scrapped. Throughout 1965, Ian Smith and the Rhodesian Front received increasing pressure from London. They resisted because of the violent unrest and intertribal rivalries that had already started to play out, and which they feared would escalate dramatically if Britain granted independence to Rhodesia using a black majority rule model. So, to head that off, in November 1965, the Rhodesian Front surprised and upset London by making a unilateral Declaration of Independence, or UDI. In response, the British government denounced UDI as illegal and sped up the plans for the new relay transmission facility. A temporary site had been chosen just outside Francistown in the neighbouring Bechuanaland Protectorate. Temporary because Bechuanaland, now Botswana, was also in the process of its own independence negotiations. The region around Francistown can at times go for several years without rainfall, and so the almost barren 100-acre property was relatively easy to obtain quickly, and it was ideally situated just 16 miles across the southwest border from Rhodesia and 99 miles from the provincial city of Bulawayo, although the capital city, Salisbury, was still some 326 miles distant. The choice of the Francistown site did attract some local opposition protests, but on December the 9th, 1965, a statement was made in the UK House of Commons that Bechuanaland police were helping with the security of the site and that prison labour had been used to clear it. A quick search had been made for available transmitters, and it was decided to purchase two 50-kilowatt medium-wave units from Continental in Dallas, Texas. It so happened that at the time, Continental already had several 50-kilowatt medium-wave transmitters under construction. All were Model 317Cs for various clients, one of whom was Ronan O'Rahilly, the founder and operator of the British offshore station Radio Caroline. The ship, used by Radio Caroline South, the MV Mi Amigo, had initially been converted to a radio ship for the Swedish offshore station Radio Nord in 1960. Being anchored in international waters about 20 miles from the capital, Stockholm, on the Baltic coast, only a 10-kilowatt transmitter had been necessary to cover the city with a good signal. But when the ship was moved down to a new anchorage in the southern North Sea in 1964, it was more like 60 miles from central London, where the 10-kilowatt signal was marginal in some areas and didn't penetrate buildings all that well. Then in late 1964, a competitor offshore station had arrived in the form of Radio London, with a much more powerful 50-kilowatt transmitter that covered London and South East England far better. So thus, in 1965, Ronan had decided he needed to upgrade the transmitter and had placed the order with Continental. When approached by the British Foreign and Commonwealth Office in an act of goodwill, he agreed to allow them to take the Continental 50-kilowatt medium-wave transmitter, Model 317C, was actually unit number 12, that he had ordered. This was then flown direct from Texas to Francistown and installed in what became the new Central Africa Relay Station. The next Continental transmitter, number 13, was similarly diverted and installed in Francistown shortly afterwards. Interestingly, O'Rahilly then took transmitter number 14 for Radio Caroline, and it was installed on board the Mi Amigo in February 1966 during a refit at Zaandam in the Netherlands. When the Mi Amigo finally sank in March 1980, the two transmitters on board, the original 10-kilowatt and the Continental 50-kilowatt, both went down also, and they're still there to this day on the bottom of the shallow waters of the North Sea. But I digress. The Central Africa Relay Station was quickly constructed under the supervision of Harold Robin, who previously had also supervised the installation of the American high-powered medium-wave transmitter Aspidistra at Crowborough in Sussex, England during World War II. A total of 60 tons of radio equipment was flown from the United States and England for installation at Francistown, and 18 British technicians installed the equipment. As well as the two medium-wave transmitters from Continental, two 10-kilowatt Marconi shortwave units have been sourced from the UK. The first medium-wave transmitter and the first shortwave unit were inaugurated on December the 30th, 1965. The second medium-wave transmitter and the other shortwave unit were inaugurated a few weeks later, early in the new year of 1966. The medium-wave transmitters were then operated in tandem for a combined output power of 100 kilowatts on 908 kilohertz, and the shortwave transmitters were used on various frequencies in the 60 and 41 meter bands.